Welcome to You're a Nice Guy But, the true story of a garage band, the video companion part 3. In this segment, we're going to visit the years of 1980 through early 1982. This period is best described as frustrating and full of trials and tribulations as our band struggled to move forward on the great promise of the plans we had made in late 1979. We had just changed our name to the Memos on January 1st, 1980, and were anticipating the upcoming graduation of Tom and Dave from high school, so we could set our plan in motion to move to the Boston area. Meanwhile, we continued to rehearse and write new music, but for some reason, we had no gigs. At the time, there was no reason for concern since there was a larger plan in place. I made the decision to not return to college and concentrate on the band full-time. Since we were moving, it didn't seem to make sense to further my schooling.
One of the questions we came across was, why did you decide to move to Massachusetts before everyone else?
Oh, well, there's two reasons. So, first and foremost, we had been talking about moving to Massachusetts as a band. We came up with this idea back in the fall of '79, and of course we had known Sue Henderson who lived there, and it was like, okay, we can move there because she lives there and that's a base of operations sort of a thing, right? So first, the band didn't really have any gigs. Inexplicably, that's the right word, beginning in 1980, we just didn't have any gigs anymore for whatever reason. So I felt, okay, it's now March. Why, Dave and Tom are going to graduate, at the end of May, early June. Why don't we go out there and get a head start, kind of, set up camp, so to speak, right? And move there. So I had gotten my friend Craig to drive me out to visit Sue, who I was by now dating at that time, to kind of check it out, and then came back. And, like I said, we had no gigs, and I had decided not to return to school. So we decided to move. So the second part of that was I was dating Sue, long distance, and kind of wanting, I guess, to be closer to her was the second reason. I don't know which one weighed more, but in my mind, the band thing was really why we were going there. And not to put Sue in second place, but somebody has to be second. So,
what were some of the things you learned when you got to Massachusetts in the first few months? Not only about the regular things when you move to a new place, but also the music industry there.
Well, I learned a lot more about myself than I did the music industry, first of all. Because, to be honest, I don't think now looking back, I knew anything about the music industry anyway. We may have thought we did, because we were playing and we thought we knew, but really, we didn't really know what the music industry was. Only what you read, right? So what I did learn was about myself personally was that I didn't really know anything in a sense, right? So growing up in the suburbs, you're kind of insulated from a lot of things, and moving into an environment which was, in a urban environment, there's a lot of things you've never seen before, except in TV shows, and those are kind of unrealistic. But to be up front with a lot of people and a lot of just different things going on around you, different stimuli, right? Just all kind of coming in at once. and I kind of found out that, um, after I had been there a while, I don't know if this is answering the question, um, that this was not going to be easy, personally, right? And I'm now living somewhere where I'm stuck there now, right? I've crossed the point of no return in some ways, right? I've moved 1,500 miles away, with no job, with no way to support myself other than my girlfriend and her family, and having to figure out what I'm going to do. Did I make the right decisions? Those kind of things, right? I don't know if this is a second question that might be another question that might be in there, but I found that I wasn't prepared for life, I guess, in a way that I may have thought I was. When you're 18 years old and the world is your oyster, kind of a thing, and you everything's an adventure, right? Well, it's not an adventure when you got to start feeding yourself and you got to pay the bills, and not that there were any bills, but really other than my rent. But I think I found that I didn't know anything about the music industry and didn't know where to start looking. Especially in 1980, I didn't know where to go. It wasn't like today. Maybe you can research some things on the internet. There really wasn't coming out of Omaha. There was no. I didn't have anything to tell me, okay, go here and read about this or go see that. I didn't know. I don't think I knew where to find it.
Did you have a plan for what you were going to do until the rest of the band caught up to you geographically?
In my mind, I think I had a plan, but I think that plan went out the door as soon as I got there. In a way, because I was saying I didn't know what to do. I mean, the plan was to kind of go, get set, and whatever set up meant, I don't know in my mind what that was. It was like, okay, get everything ready so that when the other three guys came out in June, that we could hit the ground running. So I guess that meant find out where places were to play, things like that, and that just didn't happen. I think I tried, but we knew what we knew. I didn't have any understanding of what the Boston scene was, because I wasn't living in Boston. I was living in Lawrence, which is 28-30 miles away or so from Boston, and the music scene in Lawrence was different than kind of what the music scene in Boston was, if that makes sense. The music scene in Lawrence was a little more on the really rock edge of things, kind of heavier rock than kind of the new wave punk side of things that was in Boston. But I didn't even know that then, other than my friend, somebody that was a friend of Susan's, Jamie Kiesel, had a cousin in a local band, and they were kind of a heavier band, and we went and saw them. But I don't know if we even saw them until much later. But yeah, I didn't really. I had a plan in my head, but the plan didn't work.
The other three guys continued to rehearse and pick up a few gigs, including one at Creighton University, where they recorded the show. For a cheap recording with a couple of microphones thrown out there, it wasn't half bad, and actually helped us secure some important gigs in July 1980. Our first gigs in Massachusetts happened on July 3rd, 1980, in Methuen, Massachusetts for the 4th of July celebration. The next day we played in Salem, New Hampshire for their celebrations.
That's kind of funny that you were on your way there.
I was on my way there, and everybody was coming back early, and we were like, "What's going on?" And they said, "Oh, there was fireworks went off and hit some people," and
Real bad.
and I was asking about the band. I said, "What was the band like?" And they said, "Oh, they were pretty good." And I was like, "What kind of music was it?" And they said, "New wave." And I said, "No way, nobody around here plays new wave. Nobody plays new wave around here." And that's why when I was staring at that card at Biters on the bulletin board, I couldn't believe that it had all these influences: the Police, the Clash, the Ramones. And I was like, no way, these guys, they don't know what they're talking about. Nobody around here plays this stuff.
Just as the excitement of our name change 6 months earlier had been a catalyst, we all thought the July gigs in New England would do the same. It was not to be the case. Dana, Dave, and Tom went to a studio in the Omaha area run by a guy named Louie and recorded basic tracks for 10 songs. The result was promising, and as 1980 was coming to a close, at least it felt like there was some movement in the right direction.
To answer your question, when we went into the studio to do Break the Ice and It's Not Right and a couple of other things like that we did, believe it or not, everything was, of course the drums weren't, but literally took a 1/4-inch cable and plugged it directly into soundboard, right? So I didn't play through my amp at all, and neither did Tom. So the bass went directly through the soundboard. Nothing. I mean, just direct to the soundboard. And I don't know why it was decided that we were going to record that way that day, but that's the way it was recorded, which is weird,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that was. I think with those, the thing that frustrated was hard for him was the way the bass was recorded. It was just really kind of a sound to it, right? But listening to those recordings, it seemed like because the guy did what those were some kind of mixes he provided to you guys on your way out, that it seemed like he messed with the sound right on him, so that for whatever reason, like sometimes the bass would be too much resonance, right? And so like that was on Break the Ice was like that. It was just kind of floating, and it wasn't a lot of definition to the bass, so he couldn't. All he could do was try to make it not overpower everything. Versus like you listen to It's Not Right, and the drums are just muffled to death, right? And everything else kind of seems okay, But yeah, you could tell your guitar was plugged straight in because it was really that chingy Telecaster sound.
Yeah. There was a guy locally who had a like a regional, I shouldn't even say regional, probably just within the Omaha area, right? Omaha Council Bluffs area. He'd had a local hit with a song called We Can Be, right? And it was kind of, mid-tempo 70s pop, right? And it wasn't a song I liked, but when it was out, I knew that it was a local song. Like I knew it was a local guy who had done the song. And it had been recorded at that studio that we did Break the Ice and everything else at. And while we were there, the guy said, "Oh yeah, he recorded the demo here too. Do you want to hear the demo of it?" And I was like, "Sure," And what it reminded me of more than anything was, not that the lyrics were any different or the chords or the melody or anything was any different, but the whole arrangement totally reminded me of Isn't It a Pity? I mean, that's the first thing that struck me, and I told the guy, I turned to him and I said, I like the demo better than the one that got released, But that's kind of you know, at the time, you know, that studio was kind of riding on that, you know. So
we recorded with just me and Dave and Dana right before Dana and Dave moved out.
Yeah, in the fall of '80, you went to a guy named Louis.
Dave? Louis. Do you remember a guy named Louis? Louis? You don't remember Louis? He was an Italian guy.
Yeah, matter of fact, hang on.
Did you? It's like I thought. Did Dana know him? I thought Dave knew him. Dana must know him. I don't know, but he had recording equipment and he was totally willing to try us out. Yeah. I'm not in control. Yeah. Easier in Time. Love that song. You Don't Know How Much You Need You. Great song. I don't know what that is.
What is that?
Huh? Nothing. You call that an ass? It's not right. Based on fact. Lady Make Believe and Instead.
And Dave has no recollection of it at all. It's completely erased.
Yeah, and what I remember, so I mean, obviously I have it. I probably need to go have this one baked. So on you call that an ass and It's Not Right, you guys actually did vocals. But on It's Not Right, the guy jacked with the drum sound really bad, really out of EQ. And so the vocals sound great, the guitar and bass sound great, but the drums just are like mushy. And so otherwise it almost could have been used, even though it was really probably just a ghost vocal. And same thing with You Call That an Ass was a ghost vocal, but we used to use that in a demo early on in Massachusetts. And then of course, Based on Fact, I don't know, Dave, you may not remember, but it was almost it was in this week in June of 1981. Dana was out there. I took this tape to the studio, and the guy used the file or the take from Based on Fact, and Dana put 3 vocals on it. He put a lead and 2 harmonies on it, and it sounded excellent. I mean, the sound on this thing on a couple of the songs are really good, but you guys just didn't put vocals on it, and I don't remember what the problem was. But
so where was this Louis place?
Don't know. It's in Omaha somewhere.
Yeah, I keep thinking it was near the interstate, or I don't know, 60th Street. I remember 60th Street. I don't know.
Was it a van down by the river? Is that?
Yeah, it was in a van down by the river.
Dave moved out to Lawrence in January of 1981 and brought his drums with him. So at least we began to think that we were getting closer to making it happen. Dave enrolled in a recording class at a small studio where he and I recorded one of my songs called Things We Do. We quickly sent a copy back to Dana, and he responded back to us through one of the many cassette tapes we had been exchanging since I moved.
Does it matter if it's right or wrong? Now it's not up to you to do the things we do, and we'll just keep on doing the things we do.
It was great. That's the way it should have been, recorded. If, in fact, we were going to do a pro record, that was perfect. The drums weren't too loud, but they weren't too quiet. The guitars were the perfect mix. The voice, they didn't jack up too high, but they didn't have it down so low that you couldn't understand it. My mom could even understand the words, What else? Let me think. What else? And overall, which was one of the big points, was that they did not echo it together. I mean, oh my God. Oh, Jesus, I'm shaking now just thinking about that song. It was great. It was just perfectly perfect. Oh my God, paraphrasing myself again. So, okay, then you said surprise number 2. Woo! Dave's song. That was good. I like it. Like you said, Jim, it's not, I couldn't understand the words because, like you said, you don't sing too loud, and your voice, really, it was just, like you said, cheap recording, after it together, but it was good. And what was good about it, basically, was I could understand what the feel to it would be, the chords, love the chords of it. and the melody. I could tell what the melody was, so that's really what's important. So that was good. Maybe when we do it live, you should sing it, Jim. But it was good. I really liked it, and oh my God, you guys are gonna put us out of business. Jim with his Jimbo Records and Valdezo with his Valdezo songs.
Tom was now singing and playing bass in a traveling Christian group, and was set to be in Long Island, New York at the end of March. Dave and I made plans along with Wilson and Sue to go see him, and in the back of our minds we had concocted a plan to kidnap him and bring him back with us. We bailed on the plan, thinking that we wouldn't get away with it anyway, and we would have some angry parents on our hands. Dave moved back to Nebraska in April, leaving things in turmoil yet again. There was an on-again, off-again dynamic between Dana and Tom back in Nebraska that spring that added to the tension.
So there's one, Dave, and this was when Dave was going to join the Navy. I got to fit this in here.
In the Navy.
Do you remember that you were going to join the Navy, Dave?
Nuclear engineering, yes.
Is that what it was? All I remember was Schnitz. It was right after Tom came back. He had like a 1 day off from the Celebrate Singers, and you guys got together and jammed, and then Tom left to go again, and then you told Dana you were going to join the Naval Reserve or Navy, and you were going to, and Dana's like, Jesus, now Dana's going to join the fucking Navy. He just goes on a tirade, where he goes, can you believe this shit? And I'm like, and here I am, I'm sitting at the Windsor House, right? Just wondering.
By yourself.
The whole world is just like falling apart, right? First, the bass player's not going to come out, or is he going to come out? Then the drummer's going to go join the Navy. Dana's in school. Meanwhile, I'm working my life away at Malden Mills, right? That frustration came through in there. But I was thinking, oh man, I got to put that into a G-rated
story. Yeah.
That Dave was going to join. Was it the Navy or Naval Reserve, Dave?
It was the Navy, the full-time guy.
Full-time Navy?
Yeah, you had done everything but sign the paperwork, according to the conversation.
They kept taking me to dinner, so I kept taking their dinner. So there's no way I was going to go. I was just going for the free food, and then I was out.
Dana came to Massachusetts in June of 1981 for a week-long visit, where we were able to get together and play music and just hang out as friends again. One night, he played us an acoustic version of a new song called Honest Intentions, and the next day, he and I recorded it in the small studio where Dave had taken his classes.
Told you, every time he looks at you, stop playing seriously.
So you want me to show you the ropes? Well, please don't get your hopes up too high, 'cause I myself have not been at this so long. Although I can't give you any facts for sure, I can tell you about some friends start out that way.
Shortly after Dana returned to Nebraska, my friends and I took a road trip to Omaha, where the Memos got together for at least one jam session. It was the first time we had played together in almost 12 months, and it felt great. Surely it wouldn't be long. Later that fall, Tom announced that he would not be coming to New England, and in that moment, all of our hopes and dreams came crashing down.
You know, I was living at home, but I knew that we were going to be coming out to Massachusetts with the band, right? What none of us knew was that Tom wasn't coming with us. And I've never told anybody this before, but the day that, or I should say the night, the night of the day that Tom had said he wasn't doing it, I literally cried myself to sleep that night. That's probably the first time in my young adult life that I remember actually weeping, right? But because I just at the time I couldn't imagine it without Tom, you know.
And I think there were three of us that felt the same way.
You know, and he wasn't just our bass player, but he was my friend. You know, I felt like we had a lot of, you know, Lennon and McCartney stuff going on with the competition between songwriting, and, you know, the way we harmonized together was very natural.
The reasons were, you know, Jim, I'd been traveling with some college-educated musicians. They were fucking good musicians, and I didn't feel like we had a chance. To be honest with you, I didn't feel like we had a chance. You know, I mean, I worked with a great keyboardist. We had a drummer, no offense, Dave, but we had a drummer that he did things with brushes that I'd never seen done before. And traveled with a cello player, and the harmonies, oh my God, could those guys harmonize? And I didn't see us going beyond 2-part harmony, and I wanted 3-part harmony, or I thought that was kind of necessary. Or I thought that was the step up that we would need, but I didn't see that happening. You know, the bigger question for me was, after traveling with these Shiite Christians, I was kind of conformed to that whole idea too, that my music making ought to be directed toward a higher thing than girls and cars and shit like that. Not that I ever wrote songs about cars. I don't know why cars,
but I know what you mean.
Yeah. And you know, for a long time I don't think I could even conceive of writing something that was not a sacred piece, that wasn't directed toward God. For about 1.5 years, maybe even longer, I didn't write anything except I did write a Christian musical. You know, I kind of am a little bit of a chameleon in that I absorb the styles that I'm around, and so for that, you know, there just wasn't enough reason to move and be at so much economic or financial risk. It was for probably something that I didn't see succeeding. I just didn't see it happening. Even if I joined, even if I was with the band, I didn't see it succeeding. But for years after that, I regretted quitting. For years after that, I wanted to go back to the band.
Should have called us. We were always looking for a bass player.
Yeah.
For a year and a half.
Yeah, for a year and a half, we changed bass players 3 times in a year and a half.
Yeah. So, but by the time I was ready to make music again, I had a daughter.
Yeah.
And that wasn't going to happen either. I couldn't tear my wife and daughter out there. Also, the reason I wanted to be in the band. You know, our vocals were so good together, and I knew where he was going. When I was playing bass with him, I always knew where he was going. He didn't have to tell me what the next chord was. I knew what it was going to be.
So,
yeah.
But I really did think that we were just all going to be packing everything up and going out east, and that was a huge blow to us. But it was all the more difficult when Dave moved, right? Because then I was, just going to school. I washed out of school. I found out that doing rote memorization isn't the way that I learn. I'm more of an OJT kind of person. If you show me how to do something, which is why it's good that the computer era came about, because otherwise I don't know what I'd be doing for a living right now. But a lot of people can go to school and learn facts, and the stuff that I was learning, a lot of it was just rote memorization, and I just couldn't retain it. I really just couldn't retain it. And for years I just thought it was stupid. I mean, honestly, I thought I was stupid until I was about 30 years old, and then I went to computer school for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is how I learned, because I was getting straight A's, but I had no idea, and nobody told me. There weren't people to say. I mean, in high school, I felt like you'd go to see a guidance counselor, and their guidance was, oh, where are you going to college? Oh, I'm not going to college. Oh, what branch of the military are you going into? And that's kind of how it was, and I felt like that a lot, that, not that I knew that there was a such thing as like trade schools. Like, it would have been great if we'd had a trade school in our area, like a vocational school. So that year was really hard because I was, failing miserably in school. Dave was gone. Tom was long gone, and all the people. Steve was in the Air Force, right? So the bigger impact on everything was that everybody was gone, and that was very, very hard on me. Dennis Bailey and I are very close to this day because we were both feeling the same thing at the same time. And I hate to say that we probably would not have become friends and become close if everybody hadn't just kind of like, which they should have done, right? People were moving on, and well, I've graduated high school now, it's time for me to do what I'm going to be doing. But Dennis and I spent an awful lot of time together because we didn't have anybody else, and it was very, I got to say, it was very, very lonely. I liked putting those, silly tapes together that I would send you and Jamie and Sue, because it kind of gave me an artistic, outlet. But at the same time, I was still writing because I still really believed that we were going to be together again in some form, even if it was just you and me and Dave and, a bass player yet to be named. But it was hard. It was very hard. It was probably one of the most difficult times in my life because, here we are from the time we were 14, even though we didn't know it when we were 14, but we were building on something, and it was this momentum, and we were working towards something, and then there was this void, and yeah. I mean, it was good. In the book, I read about what it was like for you, which, a lot of it I didn't know, but it was very healthy for me to read about it because you were going through a very, very challenging time too, you know, emotionally with the whole thing.
Reaction when Tom decided he wasn't coming out.
Yeah, that was a big blow. That was quite devastating. You know, that was probably the single big event that made me think this was over. You know, I thought we were done. This wasn't going to happen. There was no way that we were going to do this without him. He was an integral part of what we did. I mean, he was a songwriter, he was a singer, and he was a personality. And I thought, man, you know, no, and there's no offense to Dana at all, because Dana's on his own is a great singer and an entertainer, but together, the two of them, you know, it seemed to me that was like an unstoppable force, right? To me, that was like having the ace in your back pocket or whatever, or, you know, that was having two of those guys at the same time was like something that other people weren't going to have. And I'm not going to say Lennon and McCartney, I'm not going to say Difford and Tilbrook, even though I just did, but it was like having something like that, right? That just two guys that really worked well together, and so I thought, this is it. I'm probably packing up and going home at this point. The dream is over of doing this. It's time to go on to real life.
You mentioned that before I'd made the final move in March of '82, I'd come out to visit for a week the summer before, right?
Yeah.
And what was weird about that is that, you know, living in Bellevue, I never felt like I belonged. You know, like even in high school, it was like if we didn't have our little group of people, you know, I wasn't an athlete, I wasn't in the choir, I wasn't in school plays, right? You know, I wasn't any of those things. I wasn't in a bowling league in town, you know, I didn't play town sports, you know, and what was really weird about the very first time I visited, even though it was Lawrence, Massachusetts, right, was that I went home, like I went back to Bellevue with this thought that the whole time I was there in Lawrence, I felt like I was comfortable in my skin for the first time in a long, long time. There was something about, maybe it's just New England, right? Maybe it was just something about New England that I felt like I really felt comfortable being me. Like I felt like it wasn't something where I had to be concerned that, you know, I wasn't wearing the right jeans or didn't have the right haircut or, you know, didn't belong to any of those things that I was telling you about, which is a big reason why I don't, you know, it's nothing against anybody that we went to high school with, but that's why I just have no connection with, you know, oh, gee, do you remember being in so-and-so's, you know, Mr. So-and-so's class in biology? And I don't remember high school teachers. I really don't. I remember very few junior high and high school teachers. And a lot of it was I just was not connected, you know, and I just think emotionally I wasn't connected to it. I just didn't feel like I belonged. But when I came out and visited for a week in a rooming house in Lawrence, Massachusetts, that's where I felt comfortable in my skin. That's where I felt like I had a sense of belonging.
After the dust settled, Dana said he was still coming east. Dave moved back on Halloween 1981, and shortly thereafter we began planning to audition new bass players in time for Dana's arrival.
What were you thinking when Tom said, I'm done with this, I'm not coming? Did that have any impact on you at all, or?
You'd think it would have, but I still went, didn't I? And I'm not a risk taker at all. But yet I moved to.
No. See, so therein is the.
Therein is the rub. Is that how?
Yeah, there's the in all of this? Is the guy least likely?
Yeah. Why did I do it? Because I didn't want to just fly the jet. I wanted to own the jet.
You wanted to own the jet.
I wanted to be the proverbial rock star. I wanted to make money playing music.
So you wanted to be the rock star and really probably didn't know any other people that were doing it. So you stick with what you know.
0 people doing it. So.
Except for us.
Yeah.
And so it didn't seem like too far-fetched an idea.
No, obviously not. Would I fly my drums out there twice?
I mean, I didn't. I must not have thought it was too far-fetched an idea, right?
We had no idea how small the percentage of those that make it is.
When did things seem that they would work out, given how low things got?
I would say shortly after, I don't want to say shortly after Tom, but after Tom made his decision, and I don't remember exactly when this all happened, but Dave moved back to Massachusetts, Halloween, 1981. He brought his drums. So by then, Dana had obviously made up his mind that no, we're going to do this, and by then I believe Dana had actually could have put a time frame on it, because he was, like I said, he was going to school, right? He had signed up for some 18-month program, some sort of a lab technician type of thing, and so he was riding that out, finishing that out, so he had a backup plan. Either Dave or I had a backup plan, but that's neither here nor there. So when Dave moved out in October of 1981, and we actually had made that decision that we were going to continue on, and we started putting up flyers to audition bass players. To me, that was okay. Dana has made a decision that yes, he's going to do this, and we can start to move forward, albeit ever so slowly in the beginning, because you don't want to get your cart in front of the horse. But that's when it was like, okay, we went through the low of the lows, and now it's like, okay, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. And you just hope that the rug's not pulled out from under your feet yet once again. But I think that was probably it. When Dave moved, was probably when it really picked up for me. And then of course we auditioned some guys. So Dave and I auditioned a couple of guys. The first one was a guy named Victor, and he was a nice guy, really good bass player. And I don't know that Dave and I had any business auditioning people. I mean, but neither one of us were very good singers, and all we knew was some cover songs, really, to be honest. And we auditioned Victor in Jamie's basement, and I remember playing Substitute and some other things like that. He was a nice guy. I think he was from Vermont or somewhere like that, but nice guy. He had a beard. We thought, okay, you're gonna have to shave your beard, but anyway. And then we auditioned another guy. I don't remember his name, but he had a Rickenbacker bass and red hair, and I refer to him in the book. We refer to him as Red, because we don't know his name, but he did a pretty good job. And we went and recorded a song of mine in the studio, but he got arrested for some sort of drug possession or something, and so we decided to steer clear of him. And then of course, then the next person that came around was Mike Sheehy, and he seemed to be more like us. He seemed to be somebody who was still learning a lot. He wasn't like this super accomplished musician at this point yet. He'd only been playing bass really a couple years, I think, off and on bass and guitar, and we went and recorded another song of mine with him in the studio, and we just liked the way he played. It wasn't kind of conventional, it was a little bit different. So once we did that thing with him, I thought, okay, this is the guy we want to use, and now it's just a matter of getting Dana here.
One last performance by Dana and Tom at the Howard Street Tavern in Omaha as Jim and the Jim Tones, and a new chapter for Tom and for us was about to commence.
But I was even thinking about that cassette, that Jim and the Jim Tones cassette that we did at the old market with just Tom and I. You know, we were just two, you know, late teenage kids, just with a couple of acoustic guitars singing some songs. You know, I mean, it was that natural to us. You know, a lot of rehearsal didn't go into it, but it was something we did naturally, and obviously something I, you know, took for granted. I figured probably most people who are in bands do this. You know,